We may please be seated. Hello, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to the 10th anniversary launch of the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC.
Please, with reverence to God, shall we please be on our feet as I do the opening prayer. Thank you. Heavenly Father, we thank you this morning. We bless your name. We thank you for your loving kindness and your sustaining grace. We thank you for the rains. We thank you for the natural resources that you have blessed this country with. We thank you for the leadership of this country, the people of this country. We thank you for all present here. God, as we have come together, may your name be praised. May your name be glorified. May every activity that we take here go to honor your name. I thank you for the founding fathers of this committee. It is my prayer that, Lord, you, God, who took them from where they were to this point, the new leadership will do same and cascade this noble committee to another level. We thank you for continuing blessing us with the resources that this country is benefiting from. And it's my prayer that the people of this country will be the beneficiaries of these blessings. In the mighty name of Jesus, I pray, and all shall say amen.
Thank you very much. You may please be seated. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the theme for the 10th anniversary, as we could see on the screen, is strengthening citizens' ownership and understanding of PIAC and its oversight of petroleum revenue management. Of course, PIAC's success over the past decade has, among other factors, been due to the able leadership of the committee. And at this juncture, I'm very pleased that we could have an introduction of the chairman of PIAC, Professor Kwame Edum-Frimpong. It will be done by a member of PIAC, actually, Ms. Jessica Achampong. Let's please give it up for her as she comes over to give the remarks on that. Thank you very much. Over to you, Jessica.
Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. But before I introduce the chairman, I would like to make a quick correction. I work at the PIAC Secretariat and not a member of PIAC. So our chairman for this morning attended the Government Boys School, now Philip Kweku Boys School, the Adesadel College, Cape Coast, and the College of Administration, Achimota, where he obtained the intermediate ACCA. Our chairman is a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, Ghana, and the Ghana Institute of Taxation. He worked with the Internal Revenue Service as an investigating accountant, Deloitte & Touche, a firm of professional accountants, as an audit senior, and then as a partner. He has also worked with a number of companies and served on the board of several companies. Our chairman for this morning is also a past member of PIAC, where he represented the National House of Chiefs. I have the privilege this morning to introduce Osaberimba Kwesi Atta II, the Omanhene of the Gwa traditional area, as our chairman for this morning. Shall we please acknowledge him with a round of applause? Nana Chair, I have the honor to invite you to give us your address. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the PIAC Chair, members of the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, distinguished guests, representatives from the media, all other protocol duly observed, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to be asked to chair this launch of the 10th anniversary celebration of the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC. For me, this is homecoming. I say this because I remember my days in the Pioneer Committee as the first representative of the National House of Chiefs. As many of you may be aware, the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, was created under Section 51 of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act 2011, Act 815, as amended by the Petroleum Revenue Management Amendment Act 2015, Act 893, with a mandate of monitoring compliance with the law, creating a platform for citizens to debate whether spending prospects are in line with national development priorities, and conducting independent assessment of the management of the revenues. The Act provides the framework for a strong management mechanism for monitoring oil and gas receipts, and more importantly, for spending the revenues accruing to the state. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, since its establishment in 2011, PIAC has worked tirelessly towards the fulfillment of its mandate, and today we are here to launch the anniversary that will kickstart a series of activities to showcase what PIAC has done. Fellow citizens, I believe that the 10th anniversary offers PIAC a unique opportunity not only to look back at what it has done with regards to its mandate and celebrate its successes, but more importantly, to pick useful lessons that will position it to forge ahead and extend the frontiers of transparency and accountability in the management and use of petroleum revenues in Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude by saying that I gladly accept to chair this special occasion, but I appeal to each and every one of you to offer me your unflinching support so that we can have a successful launch. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Your Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, behind every successful milestone, there lies a story. And of course, with 18 reports being published by the Committee on Petroleum Revenue, it is imperative for us to have a clear understanding, a very clear one, of the brave and challenging journey of PIAC through the years. And for that, help me as we welcome Dr. Steve Mantiel, the 2018 and 2019 chairman of PIAC. Please help welcome me as I invite him to the stage to share with us the PIAC story. Thank you very much. I think, okay, please let's put stuff for him as he makes his way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I will need assistance with the projection of the short presentation. Your Excellency, Nana Chairman, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, with your kind permission, I'll proceed to present the PIAC story. And this is the outline of the historical context of the PRMA, the key issues for settlement, the contentions, consensus, the rationale for creating PIAC, who PIAC is and what it does, initial challenges encountered by the committee, the turnaround, and I'll conclude with a few suggestions in terms of how to deal with some of the lingering challenges in the work of the committee. This is a country that has produced gold for over 100 years, half of it under independent Ghana. And yet in the year 2000, the country was declared a highly indebted, poor country, which speaks volumes in terms of how we've mismanaged our natural resource wealth. God being so good, and sometimes I say God is a Ghanaian, exactly 50 years after independence, he blessed this country with another vital natural resource, hydrocarbon, what we call oil and gas. And we decided as a country, and I quite recall, under former President John Agyekum Kufuor, a profound statement he made to the effect that we'll be mindful as a people not to repeat the mistakes we've made in the mining sector going into oil production. And so in 2008, we began the processes of fashioning out a national vision and a new governance arrangement to manage our oil and gas resources in this country, and it started from GIMPA. In the run-up to the GIMPA conference, CSOs decided that on this occasion, they were not going to leave the management of our petroleum resources entirely to the politicians, and that they would want to crave a role for themselves and to ensure that the management of petroleum resources in this country inures to the larger benefit of all Ghanaians. And so we met in GIMPA and made demands of the government of the day in terms of a role for citizens in the management of our hydrocarbons. Next slide. PIAC, born with the enactment of the PRMA in 2011, eventually became the framework for citizens' participation in petroleum revenue management in this country. And so the story of the committee has become inextricably bound with the evolution of the PRMA, which in itself also was subject to intense negotiations in terms of how much to spend, what to spend on, and all that. Now, the framework for managing our country's petroleum revenues was actually subjected to national consultations led by the indefatigable Professor Amoako Tufuor. It was a lot of work. I happen to have accompanied him on some of the visits to other countries, Norway and the rest, to learn from their example. Of course, with strong collaboration from the Parliamentary Committee on Mines and Energy, which was chaired by the Honorable Moses Asaga. He was invited here, but due to some travel commitments, he couldn't make it. These were the key contentions that had to be negotiated as we put together the Petroleum Revenue Management Act. Revenue collection and allocation, how much to spend and how much to save, managing what is allocated for current spending, managing the petroleum funds, that's the Heritage and the Stabilization Fund, and then issues bordering on transparency and accountability, where I situate the Public Interest and Accountability Committee. Next slide. Views were varied and negotiations very intense. For instance, in July 2009, a certain Professor Arnold Harberger of the University of California came to Ghana and had the opportunity to express an opinion on what Ghana should do with its future oil and gas revenues. Save the oil money abroad, he advised, and bring the money home gradually when there are good projects to invest in. Or, he noted, the money may as well be kept home and invested in viable projects. In his view, it would be a waste of oil money if political maturity is not exercised in determining the priority list. Again, in June 2010, Dr. Nimoy Thompson, an economist, speaking at a CSO's forum on oil and gas in Accra, said, "I am not a fan of the Heritage Fund. Dr. Thompson would rather the money was spent now and on infrastructure and social sectors, not on recurrent expenditure. Future generations," he argued, "stand to benefit from the investments the country makes now." Dr. Thompson's position was backed by the then Deputy Director of the Revenue Watch Institute, now NRGI, Natural Resource Governance Institute, Mr. Antoine Huty, who argued that Norway, which has often been cited as a success story, initially invested its oil money in infrastructure. The funds, he observed, were established later. In Ghana's case, he asked if it wasn't economically sensible and politically sustainable to save the oil money in the face of the country's huge infrastructure gap. So his was to use the oil money to address the infrastructure gap that faced the country at the time. The Imani Center for Policy and Education argued that all oil revenue be directed at infrastructure investments and development, because we had at the time a $10 billion deficit in investments for key infrastructure projects such as water, energy, health, roads, telecoms, and schools. Our projected revenue for the next 5 years from oil is around $5 billion from the Jubilee field. We hope we'll get more from Jubilee and other fields. Whatever happens, we are not likely to get 10 billion in 5 years. And we need these critical infrastructure projects badly. Hence our proposal to devote all oil revenue to that, Imani explained. Now, the civil society platform on oil and gas, CISPOC, however, saw things differently. Borrowing against future oil earnings, it argued, is tantamount to eating one's eggs before they were hatched. In a press statement, CISPOC said it fully supported the establishment of the Heritage Fund and that much as infrastructure development was necessary, it would be unwise not to save for the future, especially when we do not, as a people, as a country, seem to have sound public financial management system. Eventually, so you see there was a wide range of views, positions expressed as we discussed how or what governance framework we put in place for managing the oil revenues. And these were the consensus that were achieved at the end of the day. First, how much to spend and how much to save. So we agree that we will spend up to 70% and save 30%. What to spend on? Again, the law clearly stipulates what to spend on, 70% on infrastructure, and 30% perhaps on recurrent. And then where to save? We decided we'll save the petroleum funds outside the economy to avoid any possibility of overheating in the economy. Then the need for a long-term development plan was also clearly articulated, but regrettably, as we speak, this country has no long-term development plan, which makes our planning pretty ad hoc. Now, again, whether or not to collateralize oil revenues, again, the consensus position was that we will not collateralize our oil reserves, but we only allow for the purposes of collateralization the annual budget funding amount. And then the need for citizens' oversight body, which eventually gave birth to the committee, PIAC. Now, the rationale for the creation of PIAC. Clearly, the birth of PIAC signifies a new dawn in the management of the country's natural resources. It appears citizens had lost hope in politicians' ability to deal with the challenges of this country dispassionately and in non-partisan manner. The suggestion initially came under severe attack from Parliament, which saw the creation of the PIAC, or the proposal to create PIAC, as a usurpation of their constitutional mandate to exercise oversight over the executive. And somehow, after back and forth, a compromise was reached, which settled on PIAC as a support mechanism to the oversight role of Parliament. Next slide. So this is the structure of the composition of the committee. You have representation from the Ghana Journalists Association, Ghana Bar Association, Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana, Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, think tanks, National House of Chiefs, Association of Queen Mothers, Christian groups, and Muslim groups. So this is a microcosm of the entire makeup of the country called Ghana in terms of the non-state actors. Next slide. What PIAC does. The law establishing PIAC gave us three key mandates. One, to ensure compliance with the provisions of the Act with respect to the management and use of petroleum revenues. To provide a platform for public debate on spending prospects for petroleum revenues in this country. And thirdly, to undertake independent assessment of government's performance in the management and use of petroleum revenues. And these functions are carried out and reflected in the semi-annual and annual reports of the committee. The committee at birth faced serious challenges, and I want to recount a few of them. One was a lack of accommodation to house the committee. In 2014, the committee got evicted because of refusal of the landlord to renew their tenancy upon expiry. Prior to that, they had been hosted by the Natural Resource Governance Institute. And so when they were evicted, they had to return to perch with the Natural Resource Governance Institute, formerly known as the Revenue Watch Institute. Now, according to the former Deputy Minister for Energy, Honorable Dr. Kwabena Donkor, trying to explain why the committee was neglected, he said they thought that the committee, since because of its makeup, it was an NGO, and so had to fend for itself. And I think that was clarified subsequently for him, that this is a statutory body and ought to be fed on their budget. Next slide. Yes, funding. The PRMA that established the committee unfortunately made no provision for funding of PIAC. And perhaps this was due to the opposition it faced from Parliament itself. And so it might have been an oversight. Again, out of a budget of 1.3 million Ghana cedis, which was allocated to the committee, only 345,000 was disbursed in 2012. This was sufficient to only rent an office, and this was in October 2013. After the rental, there was no money left for furnishing and even paying for utilities. This was a period during which the salaries of secretariat staff were in arrears for up to 6 months. Allowances of committee members were first paid nearly after 2 years of the establishment of the committee. On the side of human resource, the secretariat was manned by only 2 staff, Major Abulokwaku and the then coordinator. Major Abulokwaku at the time, he was a pioneer chair of the committee, and he had to actually work almost full-time to ensure that this dream of citizens' participation in the management of petroleum revenues did not die. Some administrative support was provided by the Revenue Watch Institute. Entirely, there was no training and ongoing capacity development for even the coordinator, just a single person providing administrative support to the chair. For these reasons, the committee could not meet its statutory reports, obligations. Statutory reports delayed for about 2 years. They were not able to organize public engagements. They did selected few regional forums. And there were no fiscal verification of projects, so you were reporting on projects that you could not vouch for their existence. And this, for me, did not make for proper accountability. PIAC's work and situation began to improve with the intervention of some development partners, such as GIZ, GOGIC, World Bank, and international NGOs such as Oxfam, who provided capacity building support to the committee. DFID and GOGIC provided a 5-year support to the tune of 1.57 million for building the capacity of the committee and for recruiting additional staff to support the work of the committee. A major intervening factor was the amendment of the PRMA in 2015, which, among others, made PIAC's funding a part of the ABFA, and that was when the committee started receiving regularly funds to cover its expenditures. Additional staff were also brought in 2015, and then in 2016, the government allocated a cross-country vehicle for the outreach activities of the committee. And in 2009, under the current government, support was given to PIAC to procure a permanent secretariat at East Legon. Okay. Given the improvements in the financing of the committee and the support from development partners, PIAC began to engage with citizens. After all, the committee does not represent itself. It represents the citizenry. And the law requires the committee to report to them. So in 2016, the committee embarked on, public engagements in 61 districts across the country. In 2017, it did 20 in 2017 and 12 in 2018, 20 in 2019, and 6 in 2020, and so counting. The 2020 had only 6 public engagements for obvious reasons. This was the time the country was hit with the COVID pandemic. And so due to restrictions and all that, COVID restrictions, the committee could not do its work as it had planned. Fiscal verification of ABFA projects were also undertaken. 6 projects in 2016, which actually revealed that some of the projects that were being reported by government as being projects on which oil money has been expended on were non-existent. 40 projects were inspected in 2017. Further revelations of shortly executed projects were unearthed. There were also still projects that could not be identified. And 25 projects in 2018, 32 in 2019, and 18 in 2020. The project inspection for PIAC is key in ensuring accountability. We have disclosures being made by government as having spent the money on specified projects. Going to verify for us is very, very important to ensure that the monies have been used and used judiciously. Now, PIAC also began to engage stakeholders, particularly the reporting entities, on possible implementation of the recommendations of the committee. So it was not just enough to make recommendations for remedying some of the infractions of the law and misuse of the oil revenues, but also they embarked on engagements, meetings with the various ministries, departments, and agencies to work with them to address some of the infractions that were identified in the course of the committee's work. Turnaround time of report production also reduced to 3 months. And PIAC now produces its own report. Prior to the support we got from government and also other development partners, we were contracting out the production of the report for lack of technical capacity. But over time, the capacity of the Secretariat and the members were built to enable them to produce their own report. Conclusion. The committee has managed to largely deliver on its mandate, even though a lot more could be done, especially in the area of project monitoring, constituents engagements, etc. Credit should be given to the government, development partners, and the pioneer members of PIAC for their sheer determination to make the PIAC experiment work in Ghana. Advocacy groups, civil society, and the media who followed and ensured that PIAC got funding from the ABFA also deserve commendation. The need for continuous support from the Public Interest and Accountability Committee constituency groups cannot be overemphasized. And I dare say that last year I was at the Central European University, and I really felt proud when Ghana was cited as an exemplary country for others to follow in terms of the framework for citizens' participation in the management and use of petroleum revenues. And indeed, the 2017 Resource Governance Index, a global index that manages the performance of countries in the management of their natural resources, rated Ghana's framework for managing petroleum revenues as the best in Africa and the 13th best in the world. It speaks volumes of the fact that we're doing something good, which needs to be extended also to the mining sector. Yes. Okay. The onset of COVID-19 and its associated challenge to people's movement and public gatherings clearly marks a new phase in the evolution of PIAC. The COVID-19 challenge particularly calls for innovative ways in fulfilling PIAC's information dissemination and public outreach mandate. Under the current COVID-19 protocols and restrictions, not as many people as used to be will be invited to outreach activities. How PIAC functions under this new circumstance will be a chapter to be added to the story of PIAC and its evolution. On this note, I thank you for your attention.
I think we can do it better for him. We can do it better for him. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, at this particular juncture, help me welcome the chairman of PIAC, Professor Kwame Adum Frimpong, for his remarks. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, Nana Chairman, Osaberima Kosiata No. 2, Omahene of Ogwa Traditional Area, Representative of Ministry of Finance, Madam Abna Ose Asare, our special guest of honor, Professor Joe Amaku-Tuffuor, members of PIAC Committee, both past and present, coordinator and management of PIAC, friends from the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to welcome you here on this occasion, which has historic significance for the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, as an organization. It is a particular privilege and pleasure for me to welcome His Excellency, the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. We are privileged to have our President here for our 10th anniversary. We thank God for that. May I also welcome representatives of Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Energy, and Petroleum Management Institutions for your presence here today and the support you have been providing to PIAC over the years. Our celebration is not so much of a festivity, but a solemn occasion to pause and look back at this 10-year journey. 10 years is a major milestone for an institution, a moment to look back on our successes and difficulties, as well as at the mountain we are still climbing. The government of Ghana saw the importance attached to petroleum management and therefore took initiative before the beginning of oil production. The government in 2011 conducted nationwide consultations on how to manage the expected petroleum revenue. Various proposals recognize the importance of transparency and accountability in the management of petroleum revenue. The need for a public oversight committee was also one of the recommendations provided in some of the proposals received at that time. PIAC was therefore established under Section 51 of Ghana Petroleum Revenue Management Act 2011, Act 815, to provide independent oversight over the collection, allocation, utilization of Ghana petroleum revenue. PIAC has made significant contributions to improve revenue management. Another one, to begin with, a major achievement of the PIAC has been its role in legitimizing government commitment to good governance in Ghana's oil and gas sector. Since its establishment in September 2011, the Public Interest Accountability Committee, PIAC, has effectively exercised its oversight responsibility of monitoring and evaluating management of Ghana petroleum resources by the Ghana government and stakeholders institutions. According to Section 51, the Petroleum Revenue Management Act 815, the PIAC is to produce 2 reports every year. The first is by 15th March and the second by 15th September. Over the 10 years, the PIAC has been able to satisfy the above legal requirements and has produced coherent reports and have raised critical issues of transparency and accountability in Ghana oil and gas sector. To be specific, the PIAC has produced 18 impressive reports from 2011 to 2020 on the oil and gas sector, where details on the activities of the sector had been highlighted and thoroughly discussed. All of these reports had been outlined several key findings and recommendations with a view to enhancing transparency and accountability in the nation's oil gas sector. Despite all the successes mentioned, the PIAC was plagued with several monumental challenges which nearly undermined the full realization of its potential in promoting transparency and accountability in the oil and gas sector. Even getting off its place was a problem. In its early years, it has to rely mostly on donor agencies to survive. But after the amendment of PRMA, as the Act in 2015, allocation of budgetary funds to PIAC started improving. In addition, in 2019, that's early 2019, the President of Ghana, under the leadership of Nana Akufo-Addo, directed that a percentage of 2019 allocation to be made to acquire permanent office space. And now I can tell you that we have our own secretariat for our operations. Gratefully, PIAC now receives regular budget fund allocation from the government. But we pray that the timeliness of release of the funds will not be a challenge to affect the implementation of the committee's activities now, and I will say, and forever. An institution that doesn't have a history may not have a future. So today, we pay homage to all past committee members, for nothing would have been possible without your devotion to the task at hand. With those few remarks, let me take this opportunity to appreciate and welcome all distinguished past committee members and all institutions that are involved in petroleum revenue management for creating time out of your busy schedules to come and be part of this event. Your participation is very welcome, and your presence is highly appreciated. Secondly, I wish to appreciate our guest of honor, Professor Joe Amaku Tuffuor, and our own Nana Osaberima Kosiata #2. I'm saying our own because he was one of the pioneers and he was the first vice president of PIAC. So it's our own for accepting our invitation to come and share with us your precious knowledge. We are grateful to everybody who is here, and finally, the media, who are always with us. When you say 2, they will add 1 to it. Your joint efforts have contributed greatly to PIAC achievement. I say ayiko to everybody, and you are all welcome. Nana Chairman, I welcome everybody to this landmark event and hope you are all going to pick a valuable lesson from our eminent speaker and begin to form an opinion as to how to contribute positively for the efficient management of Ghana petroleum revenue. We look forward to seeing what the next decade will bring for PIAC and its stakeholders. You are all welcome. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
I think we can do it better for the chairman of PIAC. Thank you very much, Professor, for that particular address. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, as we do know, this is the launch of the PIAC anniversary at 10, and definitely we're live on Joy 99.7 FM and on Ghana Television. And it is now time, ladies and gentlemen, for us to have the solidarity messages. And we're going to be starting off with DFID. To help us with their solidarity message is Vivek Misra. Please, let's put it up for him as he makes his way for his solidarity message. Thank you.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, Chairperson of this event, the Chair of the PIAC, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to be at this august gathering. And I, on behalf of the United Kingdom, the British High Commission, the erstwhile DFID, which is now the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, wish to congratulate PIAC on this stupendous achievement. PIAC at 10 is a watershed moment for Ghana. Credit must be due to the government, successive governments, which initially created and have sustained PIAC, and at the same time to the civil society for the role it has played in supporting PIAC. It is an achievement not only for the government and civil society, I think it's an achievement for all Ghanaians. And a little bit of credit may be given to the UK as well, because we have been so passionately supporting the PIAC in its achievement. Just to dwell, I mean, it has come a long way, and Dr. Mantio has elaborated on that. Just 2-3 lessons that, for me, having led the GoGeek program and having worked with the PIAC so closely, for me there are 3 lessons that is imperative that we learn, not only for the oil and gas sector, but generally. The first is, governance lies at the heart of development in any country. And institutions lie at the heart of governance. So unless there are strong institutions, good governance will be difficult to achieve. And by making PIAC part of an institutional fabric that ushered in good governance, I think that's the key lesson. Are we doing the same in other parts of our institutional framework, in other parts of our institutional fabric? That is one thing we need to draw on. The second aspect is, institutions can't become overnight good unless they are held or anchored by individuals, esteemed individuals, those who have the capability, those who have the leadership, the stewardship to take an institution from the ground above and make them thriving models of excellence. And a great deal of credit needs to be given to the leadership, to the board, to the chair of the PIAC, which have always advanced its interests and done a great job. Finally, accountability and transparency is a key part of governance, and that's where PIAC has demonstrated how important it is that governance has to be accountable, it has to be transparent. Last but not the least, a couple of lessons for the government of the day. The first is, please continue to support PIAC with adequate resources. We were there when PIAC was struggling, and we have seen how difficult the times were. And right now, the government has taken a decision that a part of the ABFA money will be routed into PIAC, so that's great. So that is something that needs to be continued. And the second aspect is the PIAC reports are quite good, and quite a lot of findings that come in the PIAC report. How can that be used to action reforms by the government? That will be really, really critical. Thank you for your invite, and I look forward to continuing to be engaged with PIAC on this. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vivek Misra of DFID. And we continue with the solidarity messages, and up next is the NRGI with Mr. Nasir Aifa Mohammed for his brief solidarity message. Thank you very much. Please let's welcome him as he makes it to the stage.
Thank you, Your Excellency, the President. Nana Chairman, permit me to stand on existing protocol and to proceed with the solidarity message. It is a pleasure to step into the shoes of the Natural Resource Governance Institute's West Africa Regional Manager, Ms. Nafi Chinri, to address the solidarity message to the Public Interest and Accountability Committee on the occasion of the launch of PIAC at 10th anniversary. A year when Ghanaians from all walks of life will critique petroleum revenue management after 10 years of oil production in Ghana. A decade of oil production represents many things. It could be a cause for celebration, a reason to pause and reevaluate, a remembrance, an inspiration, and a time to honor gallant champions of good petroleum revenue management, particularly past members of PIAC. In this year, we expect PIAC, Parliament, and the entire citizenry to consider evaluating both the steps forward that have been taken towards better management of the country's petroleum revenues and progress still required to be made. In this journey, NRGI is ever ready, as we have been in the past, to support PIAC's campaign for good petroleum revenue management in Ghana. We have in the past, as demonstrated here by Dr. Mantiel, under the support from UK's Department for International Development, now Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, from August 2014 until September 2017, worked with PIAC in several respects, including hosting PIAC when they had no place, as office space. We did that, for the benefit of the people of this country. We at NRGI are committed to continuing this support in PIAC's Good Petroleum Revenue Management campaign. We are convinced that good petroleum revenue management can help Ghana develop sustainable, and the NRGI pledges to continue working hand in hand with PIAC, the government, Parliament, and PIAC's reporting entities to move beyond rhetoric and take action to improve the management of petroleum revenues in Ghana. Progress in good petroleum revenue management occurs step by step, and each victory becomes a platform upon which the next may be built. Our shared task as in PIAC, government, Parliament, and captains of the oil industry is to keep building until we've made visible and transformative impacts in the lives of Ghanaians, the real beneficiaries of the country's petroleum revenues. And in that quest, I invite every Ghanaian to participate. I thank you for your kind attention and wish PIAC a happy and impactful 10th anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nasir. Your Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, shall we now have the GIZ for the solidarity message? And to help us with that is Mr. Raphael Freking. Please help me welcome him as he gives his solidarity message. Thank you.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, former and current members of PIAC, distinguished guests. I am very pleased to be part of this memorable occasion, which is earmarking the 10-year celebration of PIAC's existence. Congratulations to all members and stakeholders of PIAC. Without any doubt in my mind, the creation of PIAC was not only necessary in the demand for accountability in the sector, but also a unique initiative as compared to Ghana's peers in the oil and gas industry in the sub-region. PIAC has fulfilled its mandate of improving transparency and accountability in the oil and gas sector in Ghana. This is reflected in PIAC's critical functions such as issuing of statutory reports, sensitization of stakeholders on oil and gas revenue management issues, ensuring compliance of provisions of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, and demand for accountability from government and institutions involved. We commend PIAC for its timely production of its mandatory reports its successful collaboration with other accountability bodies, and for enhancing demand-side accountability in the sector. We are happy to associate with PIAC successes, as it is an indication that the long history of support to PIAC has yielded in positive results. We have acknowledged the role PIAC is supposed to play within the governance landscape. PIAC's reports had shed light on issues of the sector such as revenue accountability, lapses in institutional reforms, revenue generation, and general compliance of reporting agencies as required by the Petroleum Revenue Management Act. And I think we all know how important revenue management is also to achieve the vision of you, Mr. President, and the government of Ghana, of a Ghana Beyond Aid. I have also observed that PIAC report recommendations have largely been implemented by government and other agencies cited in the reports. I wish to further encourage deeper collaborative efforts between Ministry of Finance, other reporting agencies, PIAC, and other accountability actors in a collective effort at improving governance of the sector. There's more to be done to improve accountability of the sector, as transparency has largely improved. Maybe on a personal note, I have to say when I came into the country 3 years ago to become the program manager of GIZ governance, my first meeting I attended was a PIAC meeting, and I think Madam Deputy Minister of Finance was also there, and I was really impressed how, first of all heads of institutions were there, deputy ministers, the Commissioner General of GIA, and they were really put on the spot by PIAC, so this was really extremely impressive. GIZ has supported PIAC and will continue to support PIAC in terms of technical capacity and financial support. I would like to thank explicitly our donor, the Swiss State Secretariat of Economic Affairs, SECO, for their continuous support over many years now for this intervention. We continue in this way on both demand side and supply side to improve on governance of the oil and gas sector. We are happy to further strengthen our collaboration with PIAC to ensure that the success story of PIAC becomes a shining example of other oil gas producing African countries. I have to say I'm very impressed, Mr. President, that you honor this event with your presence. This shows your commitment to good governance, and I wish you all a successful anniversary celebration. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Raphael. Your Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, he has made extensive publications on the upstream petroleum sector, including a public policy report on the review as well as the analysis of prevailing mining policy frameworks. Currently, the Secretary and member of Ghana's Economic Management team. Kindly help me welcome, for his particular remarks, Professor Joe Amoako-Tufour. Thank you very much. Please put your hands together. Help me welcome him as he makes his remarks. Thank you.
Good morning to everyone. His Excellency, members of the PIAC committee, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to be here this morning to have a conversation with you. His Excellency, it is always our responsibility to do good for ourselves and to do good for our families and our communities. It is exceptionally satisfying to be asked to do the public good, the greatest good of all. In 2008, I got a phone call from the late Honorable Bar Redu. I was teaching in the university in Canada, and he asked me, Prof, we have a job for you to do for us. Can you come home on a 2-year leave, if you can get? I asked Bar Redu to write to the university if the university will grant me 2 years. So Honorable Banretu wrote to the university, St. Francis Xavier University in Canada. And the university was kind enough to say, okay, you can go for 2 years. Well, it turned out to be 2.5 years and straddled 2 regimes, NPP and NDC. His Excellency, the job was done. This is the first time I'm speaking on it after 10 years. I have kept my silence. The public good can be done by so many people. Let others take away and add to it. So I'm very happy today to be given the chance to have this conversation. When I came in 2008, my terms of reference was very simple. How we divide the oil and gas cake. I was basically shown a picture like this. How do we avoid this picture? The story that has been portrayed by so many sub-Saharan African countries in the mess of their resource. We go from Congo to Angola to Mozambique, Sierra Leone. When we uncover our buried resources in the ground, somehow, some way, we manage to complicate our life. And this is a classic story of slicing the cake and the rest of us, underlings, struggling to get a piece of that cake. How are we going to prevent the story in Ghana? And so we set up to work. And the first place to start, for me, was to go to the Constitution for guidance. And in Article 2576, the story is very simple. Every mineral in its natural state is a property of the Republic, shall be vested in the President on behalf of an interest for the people of Ghana. We, the people, are the principals of the resource. We entrust everything in the President. The President is going to delegate that responsibility, that big task, to all kinds of institutions, all kinds of agents to perform. You go to another section of the Constitution, 36(1), and it says that the state shall take all necessary action to ensure that the national economy, including all its resources, seen and unseen, human and unhuman, is managed in such a manner to maximize the rate of economic development and to secure the maximum welfare and freedom of every person in Ghana. This task was not to be taken lightly. If we were to abide by the Constitution in the spirit and intent of what it's supposed to be. So, we form a group, a team, Minister of Finance, Minister of Energy, GNPC, Bank of Ghana, Minister of Finance, and we set out to develop all the instruments needed to achieve our objective. The law that we're going to provide, the bill at that time, was to satisfy a few things. One, it must capture the spirit and intent of the Constitution. Otherwise, we would not have done a good job. It must recognize that we are dealing with a finite resource, depletable, and it's a commonwealth. It must ensure all the checks and balances, all the institutional actors complement the public financial management laws. As a commonwealth, we must put in all or sufficient safeguards for transparency and accountability to serve best the welfare of all Ghanaians. And we must take lessons from our own history. Good. So for starters, those who have not read the law, because it may look complicated, because this was a public document, we are going to construct a public document, and we need a public consultation. It was important that there should be nothing technical. Everything should be presented to the public in pictures. And that is what we set out to do. So this is very simple. You have a resource on the ground, brown, you take it out and you put it in an imaginary barrel. The gross oil and gas, we'll put it there. Now we have to determine who takes the oil and gas from the barrel, in what sequence, and how much do you take? Well, we have what we call sharing arrangements, called the fiscal regime. The government, the National Oil Company, IOC, these are the three agents who must do the sharing. The IOC will take their share, so they will open the barrel and take their share of the barrel, called the number of liftings. Government and NOC, the National Oil Company, will take our share, Ghana's share, and then we step down, then we go into argue in a town hall among ourselves how much to spend and how much to save. The National Oil Company, your business is done. So if you look at this picture, we have three aspects of the petroleum. First, we must have exploration and regulatory regime. Who gets the right to extract the resource control? Then we have a fiscal regime led by the Minister of Finance to write all the terms of the arrangement in terms of sharing. Then when we are done, we come to the revenue use and the management part, which is Act 815. Next. We need to develop the contents of the law. And to do that, we pose a number of simple questions. We are going to take these questions on the road to Ghanaians, all district regional capitals, 10 of them. What makes up petroleum revenues? Who should go and collect the revenue for us? Should the revenues be counted as part of ordinary revenues or as special revenues where we apply the income tax laws and so forth? We decided that no, this is going to be treated as a very special revenue. Once we collect that, we should decide how much of the revenue to spend to go into government coffers and how much of it we are going to save. For what goes into the budget, we have to decide what should be the priority allocation in the budget. Should it be for consumption? Should it be for roads, infrastructure? You name it, we have to provide some guidance to that, and whether we should be restricting the use of those funds. Ghanaians must provide the answers to these questions. If we are going to save, should we keep a savings account or should we open a current account or both somehow? But who should manage those funds? The President, the Central Bank, the Minister of Finance, or somebody, a committee to manage those funds? And who makes withdrawals from those funds? Do we need permission from Parliament? And so forth. So we need all the safeguards and the steps to make sure that the revenues are protected. And the accountability transparency challenge. How do we ensure there is sufficient daylight in this conversation? And what measures should be put in place to ensure there is sufficient public oversight? Yes, we have Parliament representing us. But in this occasion, we needed to go further, and we explained why we needed to go further. Transparency implies that the public has unlimited or unfettered access to information. We don't determine the quality of the information. We want information, we get information. And transparency does not imply that the public has a formal active voice in the operations that affect us all. But democratic governance depends on informed public participation, and we had plenty of lessons from mining. 100 years. Many of us still continue to argue we haven't seen much of the mining. But these were also the days of EITI, the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. But that initiative did not seek active public participation of the public. It was simply to be given information on how the mining companies, whether they are paid the money or not. We will do something different this time. We look at transparency as a necessary but not sufficient component of informed public participation. We needed to have an active public voice, and it has to be in the form of a more formalized representation in whatever we are going to do. Hence, PIAC came to be. We took lessons from Alaska, we took lessons from East Timor, we took lessons from other countries, and by our own experience, we thought of having this oversight committee. In developing the law, there were many generous contributions, offers, suggestions, ideas from IMF, the World Bank, Commonwealth groups, and so forth. Mr. President, I like your Ghana Beyond Aid. This was an exercise by Ghanaians. We spoke to everybody. You have the right to contribute. We will share with you what we have done and contribute. But this is going to be a Ghanaian exercise. We are going to give Ghanaians the opportunity to inform us by our own history, by our own experience, what we must do to be acceptable to all of us. So we have a long history of mining, lessons from other countries, the public expectations and aspirations of the use of the resource for the welfare of Ghanaians. These points informed us a lot. They shape all the key decision parameters in the law. How much we should save, how much we should spend, the construction of the Heritage Fund, the construction of the Stabilization Fund. And one thing about the law was that it is very high on flexibility, that every 3 years, all the key decision parameters can be debated and reformed. We didn't want to impose a straitjacket on ourselves. The public demanded high public oversight in this exercise. Part of the point made by Dr. Steve Mantiel is a general level of public mistrust or less trust in the way we conduct the affairs, monetary affairs of this country. So PIAC comes in to inform the public representation by constituency in the legislature. We're simply adding to it. It complements the Public Financial Management Act as far as petroleum revenue matters are concerned, and it gives concrete expression to Article 2576 of the 1992 Constitution. This resource is for the people, and it has to be used in all its ways, managed by the state and all its elements to ensure the maximum welfare of Ghanaians. These are the institutions that have been delegated to perform exercises for us. The delegation of duties, Parliament, Minister of Finance, representing the Presidency, the Central Bank, and the Central Bank's subsequent internal and external managers. Going up is a sense of reporting that must take place in the sense the law has the most extensive reporting requirements outside the PFM of this country. The objects of PIAC, very simple. Section 49 sets up the transparency as a fundamental principle, non-negotiable as far as the law is concerned, that even if in matters of confidentiality, the Minister of Finance must seek permission and be granted permission by Parliament before any item can be considered as confidential. But even then, that confidentiality does not exclude PIAC. So 52, please go back. Please go back. 52 is transparency. 52B is a space and platform as instruments of active voice. We needed that. And 53 is to formalize the role of PIAC in the overall management and use of petroleum revenues. In its functioning, we've heard a lot from Dr. Mantilla and the chairman, and so we'll just run through this. I think the governance of PIAC debated, a few adjustments here and there. On the whole, I think we've done well. Public education has been exemplary. The oversight of delegated responsibility of institutions, difficult, but we've made a lot of progress. We're under no illusion that PIAC will hit the ground and run smoothly, unimpeded. We've seen some funding issues, staffing and capacity to do its work. But I was of the firm belief when we did this that this is going to be a work in progress. And we'll have to continue to fine-tune it in order to make it work best for us. Going forward, for the 10 years, we've had a lot of arguments about those who don't want the Heritage Fund, the Stabilization Fund, who want to change percentages, and so forth. Those who have taken the time to read the law will come out and realize that, quite frankly, there is no point fussing about this. You have 3 years to change things. And so the law as it stands, 10 years later, has proven to be fairly robust in its key elements, in its structure, in its framework. His Excellency, our law has become the model for many countries. I've been to Mozambique, Sierra Leone, Uganda, South Sudan, Morocco, to discuss the framework and how to adopt the law. The relevance of PIAC still stands and much depends on the cooperation of public institutions and industry for us. There's a future at stake. Just as we are talking about 10 years down the road, the 10 years down the road can be very challenging. The future of the industry itself is at stake. And so is the future of the national oil companies, GNPC. Why? We are in an era of turbulent oil price environment. The shift to renewables, the threat of climate change, and the risk that we will have stranded assets deep under the ocean. Our going forward depends on 3 things. The geology that we have, the fiscal attractiveness of sharing, the regulatory attractiveness of who gets to access the resource. Right now, for the first 10 years, much of our work, if not all, have been in shallow waters. Jubilee 10 Sankofa operating in water depths 2,000 meters below. Please, what is ahead of us? We are, as far as Jubilee 10 Sankofa and so forth, we are almost taking into 1/3 of our reserves, more than 1/3 of our reserves. What is left are all in deep, shallow waters. Our future then depends on our capacity to be able to do exploration in those deep waters, 2,000 and above. You need a technology, it's very expensive. Very few oil companies would dare go into those deep waters. The Akers and the ExxonMobils are the exceptions. As we go in, Mr. President, our industry 10 years down the road will depend on how well we can do in those deep waters. It depends on how our national oil company itself can be emboldened and strengthened to see how much it can leverage, work with these partners for us to continue to have control of our oil industry. Otherwise, 10 years, 15 years down the road, we'll have a lot of challenges facing us. And therefore, the work of PIAC is very important. Just as important is how we move forward 10 years down the road. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Joe Amoako-Tuffuor, for that revealing presentation there. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, it's been an hour of revealing and insightful presentations. I think we could just put it out for ourselves for sitting through the presentation.
The Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, is marking 10 years of the management and use of petroleum revenues in Ghana through a citizen-led additional public oversight arrangement. Yes, it's been 10 years of navigating uncharted waters, 10 years of advancing our collective interest in the petroleum sector, 10 years of remarkable success, useful lessons, so much to share. Our year-long celebration is on the theme, strengthening citizens' ownership and understanding of PIAC and its oversight of petroleum revenue management, and will showcase the work of PIAC and strengthen our bond with our constituents. Join us as we tell
very much.
Thank you very much, Alom. Ladies and gentlemen, now is the time for us to have on stage our keynote address, and it's going to be done by His Excellency, the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Shall we all rise as we welcome the President make his keynote address? Thank you very much.
Nana Chairperson, Ogwemahe, Osaberima Nana Kwesi Arthur II, the President's representative of the Ministry of Finance, Senior Economic Advisor, the Office of the Vice President, the Chairperson and members of the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, past executives of PIAC, fellow Ghanaians, ladies and gentlemen, I congratulate the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, on the celebration of its 10th anniversary, and I'm grateful for the invitation to participate in this important occasion and make this brief address. Since its establishment in 2011, in September 2011, some 4 years after our nation discovered oil in commercial quantities in the Kufuor era, PIAC has lived up to its mandate as set out in Section 51 of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, PRMA, 2011 Act 815. Indeed, as stipulated in the Act, PIAC was set up, amongst others, to monitor and evaluate compliance with the PRMA by government and other relevant institutions in the management and use of petroleum revenues and investments, and provide independent assessment on the management and use of petroleum revenues to assist Parliament and the Executive in the oversight and performance of related functions. By all accounts, it has succeeded in this endeavor, and I applaud on behalf of government and the people of Ghana, successive heads and members of PIAC for this. Long may it continue. Ladies and gentlemen, relations between PIAC and government, which were in the past at times somewhat stormy, have, at least since I took office in 2017, been largely cordial and fruitful, and this has resulted in the prudent use of our nation's petroleum revenues for the welfare and benefit of the Ghanaian people. I commend Dr. Steve Mantil for his lucid review of PIAC's history and evolution, and I'm happy to state that for a change, I agree with his comments. We see here the value of freedom of speech in our system of governance of an open society. We must also thank Professor Joe Amoako-Tuffuor, Secretary of the Government's Economic Management Committee, for his invaluable contribution to the elaboration of the PRMA and its significant impact on the operations of PIAC. There is one issue which has to be addressed. It has to do with the delay in transmission of information between PIAC and the Ministry of Finance, emanating from the distortions in the deadline schedules of the reporting obligations of the two institutions. This has sometimes stoked controversy, which in my view has not been helpful, and an amendment of the relevant provisions in the Petroleum Revenue Management Act could help resolve the situation. Having said this, let me reiterate the fact that government is fully committed to supporting PIAC and will help ensure that petroleum revenues are well managed for the benefit of all Ghanaians. Government since 2017 has ensured that, unlike in the past, the budgetary allocations of PIAG have been released to enable it to undertake its activity. In 2020, for example, an amount of 3,100,000 cedis was given to PIAG, with 2,350,000 cedis set to be released for this year, in spite of the pandemic. Indeed, the committee used a part of its 2018 budgetary allocation to procure its current office building at East Legon in Accra, which brought an end to the era of evictions and threats of evictions by landlords. For as long as I remain president, support to PIAG will be forthcoming and on time. I will, in conclusion, urge the Ministry of Finance and PIAG to rekindle the holding of their quarterly meetings to ensure that issues of mutual interest and concern are addressed through dialogue. I also appeal to PIAG and its publications to help provide the general public with a better understanding of how petroleum resources are managed and clarify swiftly its position on matters should it be misconstrued in the media space. As we celebrate 10 years of PIAG, I encourage the committee, now more than ever, to continue to engage government and relevant stakeholders and help work towards the economic transformation of Ghana through the efficient use of our hydrocarbon resources. Government is committed to its continued solidarity with PIAG and assures it of government's considerable interest in all of its activities. I'm hopeful that the cooperation between government and PIAG will be deepened even further in the coming years for the goal of a united, progressive, and prosperous Ghana. I wish the new executives of PIAG well, and I'm confident that they will work to enhance its reputation even more. It is also an appropriate moment to express our gratitude to the foreign organizations that have provided much needed support to PIAG and continue to engage with it. Congratulations once again are in order, and may God bless PIAG and us all, and may God bless our homeland Ghana and make her great and strong. I thank you for your attention and have the great pleasure to launch formally the celebration of the 10th anniversary of PIAG.
Thank you very much, President Akufo-Addo. Ladies and gentlemen, shall we please rise to take the national anthem once again? That's after the President takes his seat, please. Yes. No. Ladies and gentlemen, at this particular juncture, shall we kindly invite the President together with the Chairman of PIAG for the symbolic unveiling of this particular plaque. Thank you very much. If we could please put our hands together for His Excellency the President, together with the Chairman of PIAG, for them to unveil as a symbolic opening to launch the anniversary proper. His Excellency the President, together with the Chairman of the Public Interest Accountability Committee, unveiling the plaque to commemorate the 10th anniversary of PIAG. There we go. At this juncture, we shall be taking a few photographs with the officials. We shall have the Honorable Minister, former Finance Minister, also join in for the official photographs. Impressive, beautiful. Beautiful. We're so grateful, Your Excellency. We're so grateful, Chairman of PIAG. We're grateful, dignitaries, for this historic event, the 10th anniversary launch of PIAG. Let's give it up once again for them as they make it to their seats. It has been a very wonderful moment. Can you please take your seats once again? Thank you very much. At this point in time, ladies and gentlemen, shall we now have Mr. Eric Deto, member of PIAC, for the vote of thanks. Thank you very much. Please let's give it up to him as he makes it to the stage.
Mr. Chairman, if I could proceed. The President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, members of the diplomatic community, the legislature, the judiciary, ministers of state, Nananom, stakeholders, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I, on behalf of the Executive Council of the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, wish to extend our appreciation and gratitude to His Excellency the President for honoring us with his attendance to this 10th anniversary launch of PIAC. His presence signifies the importance he places on the activities of PIAC and his desire to ensure that the petroleum revenues of the Republic of Ghana are judiciously applied for the benefit of the citizens of Ghana. We will continue to count on you to give us support so that in the coming years we are able to improve our performance beyond the historical record and to ensure that all the challenges that the PRMA is encountering are overcome in the near future. We thank you, Mr. President, most graciously. And to our stakeholders who have provided data and responded timelessly to our request to enable us deliver on our duties, we thank you also. We thank our predecessors, the past members of PIAC, for the good foundation they have laid. And without them, I don't think that we'll be here today. We wish to thank all our invited guests, friends, the press, for your participation in this event. And we hope that the Almighty God will empower us to fulfill the vision and the will of our forebears. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Shall we now have Alhaji Suleiman Anderson, member of PIAC, for the closing prayer.
Be on our feet for the closing prayer. O Lord of sovereignty, to thee we owe tons of gratitude, for you are the gracious and the merciful. Your banner of grace and mercy have been on us throughout this program, and we have come to a successful end. But we commit the lives of everyone here, particularly that of our president, into your hands. Continue to give this country a healthy life. Lord, as we live here, may we continue to enjoy your protection wherever we may find ourselves. O you who are the hearer of prayers, out of thy mercy, do accept our humble supplication. Amen.
Thank you very much. Shall we please remain standing as the President, together with his entourage, exits the podium? This has been the launch of the 10th anniversary of PIAC. We say Ayiko to all the members and all the stakeholders and everyone that made this happen. At this juncture, the President exits.
The story of how the over $6 billion US generated from petroleum production has been managed and utilized. PIAC, safeguarding your petroleum revenues. The Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, is marking 10 years of the management and use of petroleum